So, hey guys, welcome back. Today we're doing a PC build, first one on my channel. Today we're building a productivity PC, just for some light work, and that is going to be a $400 price range PC. So all these parts add up to roughly $400, maybe a tiny bit over, depending on, the day you buy stuff and the price at that point. I do have a few fans coming, 3 to be exact. But because Dell's shipping is awful, they're not here yet, even though it's been like a week since I ordered them. And today, well actually, 2 days ago was the estimated delivery date. So yeah, moving on from that. You can see all of our parts laid out here. You may notice there is no graphics card, and that is because this is a PC for my mom and she does not game. The most graphics intensive thing she'll be doing for a while is probably solitaire or YouTube. So we do not need a graphics card, as our Pentium integrated Intel 630 graphics will do us just fine. Moving in a bit close to take a look at our parts. You can see, and of course behind it is the case we'll be using. So let's get started. Alrighty guys, and for starters we're going to have our motherboard. This is probably one of the cheapest B250 motherboards out there, and at that it's a very good quality still. It's going to be the MSI B250M Pro VD. As you can see here, you're going to want to take it out of the box, whatever motherboard you decide to use. Just make sure it's compatible with your CPU, and place it on your motherboard box, the one it came with. That should ensure that there shouldn't be much static electricity. Now our processor is going to be the brain of our build. For our build today, we have the Intel Pentium G4620. This is going to be a KB-like part, and although it is dual core, it does have hyper-threading, allowing it to act like a quad core and provide very good performance, especially since it's running at 3.7 GHz. You want to be careful when touching the CPU. You want to try not to touch the yellow pins, gold pins on the back, and you want to try not to touch the heat spreader. Although if you touch the heat spreader, it shouldn't be that big of a deal because we're going to clean it off after installation anyways. So just drop it into the socket with no force. Make sure it's lined up. Then you can close the lid and secure the retention arm. This is going to take a little bit of force, so don't be afraid to push. Now your CPU is installed, and this back cover should be able to pop off on its own. There you go. Now because the CPU doesn't have a very high thermal output, especially since there's no overclocking capabilities, we're just going to be using the stock heatsink with the stock thermal paste. So if I can just open up the box here. So you can see the famous stock Intel heatsink, famously bad that is, but once again it should do perfectly fine for our build. You're going to want to avoid touching the thermal paste that's applied on the bottom, unless you want to completely remove it and apply your own. So for installation, you're just going to want to line it up with the 4 holes you see on the motherboard. Just want to line the pins up. Going nice and slowly, there's no rush at all. And once all 4 pins are lined up like that, you can push all 4 of them in a cross pattern, making sure that they're all secure. And there you go, your Intel cooler is installed. Turning our motherboard around, we are going to find our CPU fan header, as it is labeled right here. Of course, it's upside down for you guys. And if you're not sure about which header it is, always read the manual to check, because you do not want to be trying to force things in when they won't fit, or plugging them into the wrong place, because that will be disastrous, and it may completely destroy your motherboard. So you're just going to take your CPU fan wire. Oh, didn't unwind it completely. Come on. There it is. You're going to want to take your CPU fan wire, line up the pins with the holes, and it should just go in right like that. So for RAM, we're going to be using this glowy DDR4. While this is not necessarily a reputable brand, I've never bought from them or heard of them. They were the cheapest on Amazon, they have a heat spreader, and the reviews are generally positive. So that's why we went with it, since this is an absolute, complete budget, bare bones build. If it doesn't work, you can always return it. RAM is not going to be one of your more crucial components, but of course if you have the money, I would still definitely recommend going for a more high quality RAM. You can see about 2/3 of the way down you're going to have a little slot here. That's going to line up with the slot on your motherboard. I mean with the part that pokes out on the DIMM slot in your motherboard. So you're going to want to, oh, okay, whoops. Obviously you have to pull the tabs out first. Today we're only going to be installing a single DIMM, so we're going to be using our inner slot. Slide it in and then push it in evenly, both sides, even pressure, until it clicks. You may have to use quite a bit of force, so use good judgment as to how much you should use. Just try not to break it, of course. But of course don't be afraid to use force also, or it won't go in. It's not what she said. Not at all. And guys, it's always a good idea to test your motherboard and all your parts before installing it into the system, or it'll be a major pain in the ass to get it out. So you can see I've plugged in some of the essential power connectors. We are up and running. That means all of our parts work. We have nothing that's dead on arrival. So we're going to shut her down and then start assembling her into the case. So now that we've taken the side panels off of our Cooler Master Box Lite 5, we can install our I/O shield. As a general rule of thumb, the audio jack holes are going to be on the bottom side. And yeah, just pop it right in and no tools needed. It can be a bit finicky at times. Don't be afraid to use some force. It is popped in from the back, from the inside, by the way. And once it clicks in, be sure to check all the way around the perimeter that everything is clicked in, then you should be good. Next, we must install our motherboard standoffs. Start replacing your case on a flat surface sideways so that you have access to your standoffs, or where to place them, more so. Ours comes with a key. I'm using a micro ATX board, so we're going to place the standoff wherever a hole is marked with an M. Quite simple. It will come with a tool to help you install them that will convert a Phillips head screwdriver into something that will fit around your standoffs. By the way, a motherboard standoff looks like this. Now that we have all the appropriate standoffs in, we can gently drop our motherboard into place, being sure to line up the center hole with the center standoff. You can of course use your rear I/O shield for a reference as to how to line up the motherboard. After you have it lined up, just screw in all the necessary screws that line with the standoffs. Be sure to tighten opposite corners first in a cross tightening pattern as to not put extra stress on one side of the motherboard. So now we can take care of our power supply. You can see that it only has a few cables attached to it, and that's because this is a partially modular power supply. What that means is only the cables that are absolutely necessary for every single build are pre-attached. Everything else you attach yourself, so you only attach the things you need, making cable management a lot easier. For me, I will be attaching 2 of these SATA cables. This longer one has 3 SATA plugs on it. This will go to the SSD and the hard drive. The shorter one has 2 cables on it, 2 plugs, and it will go to our fan hub. Now, as you can see, this case does not use your traditional power supply mount, where there's just 4 screws in the corners. This one uses a bracket with 2 screws. So what you're going to want to do is first remove the 2 screws on the bracket so you can take the bracket off. Also worth noting, it does have vents on the bottom side with a dust filter on it. What that means is we're going to be able to mount our power supply with the fan side down, even though we're on carpet. And now that our power supply bracket is off, line it up with the 4 screw holes as I have done here, as you can see, and screw it in. As always, refer to your case manual for the screws that you will need. So now, before you slot it into the case, this is an excellent time to install your peripheral cables. As I've already gone over, for my particular case, that will be 2 SATA cables. Of course, this may be different for you. So you can see they just connect right in here. Oh, that's upside down. There's one of them. And there's 2. So now, first of all, before slotting it in, you want to slot all your cables in. So, just go slot them in and they can come right out the side here. And then you can push your power supply in behind it. Just like that. And then you're going to want to turn those 2 screws until it's secure. So now you can see, aside from all of our power supply cables, we also have these cables that came pre-installed with the case. These are going to be your front panel connectors. So you have stuff like your HD audio for your headphone and microphone jacks. You have your USB 3.0 headers, and just some smaller power button and reset switches, stuff like that. So you're going to want to route them through the openings in the case for cables, and I'll see you on the other side once you've routed them through. So as you can see, I've ran all those tiny cables that came with the case through the slots that are closest to the appropriate headers on the motherboard. That's going to make installation a lot easier. And of course, refer to your motherboard manual to see where the appropriate headers are. Next, we're going to connect all the all the cables to the headers. And also, definitely want to refer to your manual on this one, especially for this bundle of like power and reset, because they all go into the same header, just in different orientations. So you definitely want to check your manual for that one. So I'll be back once I'm done with that. And there you go, they're all plugged in. And if it doesn't go in at first, then try again. But if it takes too much force and you feel like it's not safe, then stop and check your manual. Make sure you're plugging it into the right slot, because these pins are very, very fragile. So you can see this fan header is still dangling here for the included rear case exhaust fan. But that is because I have 3 more case fans coming. As I said, Dell has awful shipping, so we will not be installing the fan header or the fans yet, because it'll depend on how long the cables are for the fans that arrive. And by fan headers, I meant the fan hub. So next up, we shall install our hard drive. Hard drive cage on this particular case is here. Check your case manual for where yours is. Mine is currently in the middle of a whole bunch of cables, which is not ideal to say the least, but that's fine. Just pop it right out, and then follow your case manual instructions to install the hard drive into this bracket. And now that we've got it into our cage, you can just slot it back in to the slots. Once again, this may be different for your case, so check the manual. Alright, so next you're going to take one of your SATA data cables you got from your motherboard, and you're just going to plug it in to the smaller of the 2 connections on your hard drive until it clicks. Then you know it's in. And then we're going to wire it to the front of the motherboard. So now we can grab a SATA data cable that came with our motherboard and connect it to our hard drive by using the smaller of the 2 ports, and it should click once it's all the way in. There we go. And then we're going to wire it to the front of our motherboard. And then now we can connect it to our SATA slot on our motherboard. There we go. So while we are here, we can also mount our SSD. Once again, check your case manual for where your mounting points are. My particular case, there's one right here. We just have to unscrew this screw, which is too tight to unscrew by hand. That's great. Probably turn the torque up next time for unscrewing, but that's fine. And you can see we have the cage off. Alright, so first put your SSD on the ground with this side facing down. Then you can place the SSD mount on top of it, lining up the 4 screw holes with the holes in the mount. And then you can tighten it down with the screws that came with your case. Do note that this particular model does use the bottom mounting holes, not side mounting holes. So now that we've got the SSD mounted properly in the bracket, we can mount it to the case. If I can line up this screw hole. Maybe. Oh, there we have it. So just make sure that it's square, since there's only one screw holding this in place. And we're gonna tighten it down the rest of the way with a screwdriver. There we go. Our SSD is mounted. While we are here, I've plugged in our second data cable, SATA data cable that is, to our SSD, and if we route it back through here to hide our cables and route it through here, I'm not routing it through this opening here because that is too close to our port, so that'll make the wire have to bend at a really extreme angle. Don't want that. But you can see now we can plug it in on our motherboard right next to where we plugged in our other data cable for our hard drive. So now we need to power our drives, and that is done through the SATA power cables that we connected earlier to our power supply. If I can find them in this jumble of cables. Here we go. So what we're going to want to do is, just like the SATA data cable, you're going to want to line it up. This one uses the bigger slot, and then it should plug right in. There you go. Make sure it's all the way seated. And I've also routed the same cable, a different ending, to our SSD, so it can give that power. So even though our fans haven't come yet, we can still mount our system fan hub. So this is going to allow us to do is to connect all of our fans once they come to one hub, as we only have one system fan header on this board. So let's see here. We're going to be using these Velcro things for mounting that came with our fan hub. So we put one right there. I know it's not a completely flat surface, I know there's holes in it, but it doesn't have to be that secure, so this will work for now. The reason I'm putting it here is that there's pretty much no other place to put it where this fan, our system fan, it's pre-installed over here, and the fans over here that I'm gonna install will reach. So can put another one on the bottom here. Then if we just line it up and press down, it should be secured. Alright guys, now while we wait for our fans to arrive, I'm going to do some cable management, and I'll be back once our fans have arrived. And by the way, your 24-pin power, ATX power, is going to go here. And your 8-pin CPU power is going to go right up there. It's nearly impossible to show you plugging them in because of the lighting. So sorry about that, but now you know how to where to plug them in. Just be sure you line it up correctly and you don't break any of the pins. Alright guys, small change of plans. So the Dell fans actually were taking so long, I've cancelled it due to a variety of shipping issues. I don't want to get into all that. And now I've ordered 4 PMW fans from Amazon. All 120mm, all this purplish magenta LED color. So we have 1 exhaust here, and we'll have 3 intakes in the front here. While we're here, we can actually plug in this cable into our system fan header. There we go. And that is, by the way, running from there, which is, of course, our fan hub, where all of our PMW fans will be connected to. The case does come with this, which we mounted earlier. However, I've decided to remove it, and because we're going to replace it with the additional PMW RGB fan, not RGB, but LED fan that I ordered. So this is no longer needed. Unfortunately, none of the PCs in none of the PCs in my house actually currently use 120 mils, and none of them can fit 120 mils, which is unfortunate. So this will just have to sort of be sitting around, because the most this case can fit is 4. So yeah, if you guys have any ideas of what to do with this fan that's just lying around, comment down below. But just a quick little update, and I'll be back once the fans arrive. And while we're at it, it probably won't be a bad idea to plug in our 4-pin header that's running off from our fan hub. Alright guys, exciting news. Our 4 purple fans have arrived. Gonna plug them in and fire her up for the first time. Alrighty, we have all 4 of our fans mounted, as you can see. Cable management actually looks pretty good for my first time. Sure, some of you could improve on it, but you know, for my first time, not too bad. A lot of you might be questioning my decision to put the fan hub here so all the cables will be very visible. The reasoning is this, as you can see through here, there's really not much clearance at all back to the other side panel, so there wasn't enough room to slide this guy in back there. So it would have made it a lot cleaner and would have been nicer to have, but that's completely fine. So let's go to the moment of truth and power this thing on. Alright guys, time for the moment of truth. Let's power her on. Everything plugged in and connected, and we got our side panel, which is of course made of mirrored acrylic, back on. Looks really nice. 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Just look at that. Looks gorgeous. Absolutely amazing. You can see the fans are so bright they even light up the inside. There are no extra LEDs on the inside and it's already this bright. The fans look really gorgeous through this mirrored panel. However, it does sound quite loud. Let's fix that. Here's the culprit. Currently all 4 of our case fans are running at full speed. And it's actually remarkably quiet for being at full speed with all 4, which says a lot about how good these fans are. However, we can make the system a lot more usable if we go to PMW mode, as we have PMW fans connected to a fan hub, so DC mode will not work. You guys hear that? I don't know if you guys heard that. I'll come closer to the case of the microphone. Let's try that again. The difference is insane. Alrighty guys, here we're at DC mode with all the fans at full power. And now, PWM. So much quieter. Beautiful. Alright guys, and that's going to just about wrap it up for this video. Hope this really helped you. Hope you enjoyed. Feel free to ask me any questions down below. And this has been How to Build a PC 2017. Of course, it did leave out graphics card, but that's pretty straightforward. And if you really don't know how to do that, you can just Google it. Oh, and there goes the computer. You can hear very quiet. fans look absolutely gorgeous, and it puts that old Dell PC back in the corner there that it's replacing to shame. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys next time. Also, be sure to check out the videos I'll be uploading in a few days, which will include reviews of the fans used, reviews of the case, reviews of some select components inside, and most importantly, benchmarks of this bad boy. Thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, for like the third time. Bye. So now, we're back here. You can see that we still have one empty SATA power lead coming off of our original SATA power cable that's powering both our SSD and hard drive right now. Our fan hub is actually powered by SATA power, so we can actually connect our fan hub to this one also, meaning that the other SATA power that we connected earlier to our power supply actually was unnecessary and can be removed for ease of cable management. So you can see we can just plug it in. There we go.